Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible.
Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello. How's it going today? I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope the sun is shining. I hope you're having a good week. I hope you're feeling positive. I'm back to bring you some more information. Today I want to talk all about being independent and the importance of just being independent in general. As humans, we naturally depend on other people for a lot of things, which I don't think, there's nothing wrong with depending on people for certain things and having those people in our lives that we can depend on. But being independent and finding your independence is, I think, really important to fully become the person that you are and to create the life that you want to live. And when I think, especially when it comes to emotional independence, I think it's really important because you don't want to have to rely on anybody else for happiness. You want to make sure that you're relying only on yourself. You can create your own happiness, and you should be creating your own happiness and not have to rely or depend on anyone else to do that for you. When we start to depend on others for our happiness, then if something happens that gets yanked from underneath us, we are left with, not very good coping skills. We don't know how to handle our emotions. We don't know how to talk about our emotions. And, we're kind of stuck in a predicament and we can fall into a hole of sadness. And that's when, our mental state starts to not go in the best place, I guess I should say. So I just want to talk to you about being independent. First of all, I'm going to talk about why it's so important to be independent, all of the benefits of it. And then, of course, like usual, I will jump into some pretty awesome tips and tricks to become more independent in your life. I'm going to touch on a bunch of different aspects of your life, emotional, finance, just kind of overall being independent. And I just think it's it's an important topic because I think when you are able to be content and happy with yourself and you don't have to rely on anybody else, that's when you get into the most kind of stable place that you're at. When we're always depending on other people, we're never really making clear decisions for ourselves. We're not really aligning ourselves with our core values and our goals, maybe because we're having to think about the other influence or think about the other people involved, or we just rely heavily on those people to bring us joy and happiness, which is just really difficult because at any moment in time, it could be technically yanked from underneath us and then we're stuck in a not good mental state, like I mentioned. So let's talk about being independent. And, it is so natural and human to become codependent in certain things of your life, certain aspects, especially in relationships. It is super, super common to become codependent. And I think the best relationships are the ones where you can depend on each other, but you have your own lives, right? You want to have your own happiness separately, and then you kind of just enhance each other's happiness together. And I think that's what kind of makes a really great relationship, a really stable and healthy relationship, instead of one thing being kind of on one side compared to the other. But it's not always just about our relationships too. It can be about so many different things that we depend on. We codepend. So, most of us are in a state of codependence with our partners, our friends, family, colleagues. like I said, it's super natural and human to lean on other people and depend on them for certain things. And I don't think it's always terrible to depend on other people. Sometimes we need to depend on other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's always about finding the healthy balance for you. And I think if you have your own independence, the way that you depend on other people is a little bit different. When you kind of depend on people with your all, with everything, because that's all you got, is just them, you're going to depend everything on them. That makes it a little bit more difficult to be in a good mental state if something's yanked from underneath you, like I said, or something like that. But it is natural to depend on people. So, first of all, I always say that, the person that's going to be there for you no matter what, the person you have to live with for the rest of your life is yourself. And so you want to have the best relationship with yourself. And being independent is the best relationship I think you can have with yourself, because that includes knowing yourself so well that you are able to completely handle your emotions, your finances, your decisions, your life choices, anything that you're doing. You can depend on you and you only, and you don't have to worry about anything else, which I just think is super healthy and super necessary to create the life that you want to live. So I thought I would first of all bring up some signs of codependency. Maybe these are kind of directed towards relationship, but if you might recognize some of these in yourself or in your relationship maybe, and it might give you a little light bulb to, see how you can be more independent now, through this episode, I guess. So the first sign is, having difficulty making decisions in a relationship. If you're always having to get them to make the decisions, or you can never just make up your mind. Having difficulty identifying your feelings. If you're kind of scattered all over the place, you're probably relying on how they feel. And then that's going to kind of depend on your answer about how you feel. Have you ever been like, when you're younger and you're like, oh, do you like me? And then they're like, well, do you like me? And it's like, well, do you like me? And it's like, I only want to like you if you like me. You know what I mean? So that happens as we grow up too, and we don't always realize that we're not identifying our feelings, but we kind of go wishy-washy, and in the back of our minds, even if we try to identify our feelings, in the back of our minds, our answer might change a little bit depending on their answer, which again is natural and human, but we don't want to always be in a state of, okay, well, I'm only going to feel this way if that person feels this way. Do you know what I mean? If you have difficulty communicating in a relationship, communication is key. Communication is very hard if you don't have your own voice. If you are so dependent on somebody else, how are you supposed to have your own voice and have your own opinions and be able to communicate yourself if you basically let your partner or your friends, your family kind of speak for you in a sense? So valuing the approval of others more than valuing yourself. This is a huge one. I'm going to talk a lot about having more value in yourself with being independent. But when we are always looking for validation, approval from the outside world, from other people, maybe social media, whatever the case may be, you're being codependent because you're not finding that happiness within yourself. You're looking for that with something else or someone else that's going to try to show you, whatever the case is. So that's a hard one, I think, because I think we all value other people's opinions, but we should value our own opinion and our own feelings more. So finding that happy medium of that one, I think, is a really, really crucial part. Lacking trust in yourself and having poor self-esteem. I think trusting yourself is another huge one of being independent. You have to be able to trust yourself to be independent. And having trust for yourself can be quite difficult as well, which that of course goes hand in hand with having low self-esteem, because you just don't believe in yourself. You don't actually think you are the amazing person that you are. So, it's lacking trust is really the big thing. Having fears of abandonment or an obsessive need for approval. Fear of abandonment to the point where you're getting very attached. You're getting very maybe clingy, as, the people like to say these days. You're getting very you're so scared of someone leaving you because you're so dependent on them that you become so attached, and you have this irrational fear, maybe that everyone's going to leave you, and that's why you become so clingy and attached, because it's too much for you to handle to even think about not having them in your life, to think about being abandoned in that way. Having an unhealthy dependence on relationships, even at your own cost. So if it's negatively affecting you, and you realize you're aware that your codependency is negatively affecting you in that relationship, but you're doing it anyways because you're scared to be alone. That is definitely a sign of codependency. And then having an exaggerated sense of responsibility for the actions of others. This is one too, I think, when you're in a relationship or when you're friends with somebody really close and your friend or your partner acts out and you feel like you, are the one that did the wrong. You feel like you need to be apologizing, like you need to explain for them, like you need to take responsibility for their actions. I think we've all been there when we are really close with a friend or a partner, and we do feel responsible for their actions, because often we might feel embarrassed if they did something that we don't agree with, and now we feel like we have to back them up, we have to explain it, we have to try to, make the wrong a right, and that can be really difficult to do, especially when it's not your own problem, but you feel that burden on your shoulders for somebody else's problem. That probably means you're pretty codependent. Okay, so that's how I wanted to start off today's episode, hopefully giving you, that might be some things that you might recognize, maybe you don't, maybe you see them in other people. So those are all signs of codependency. And now it's time for a little bit of a break, but when we get back, I'm going to be talking more about why we need to be more independent and the benefits that it has for us in our lives. So stay tuned, I will be right back.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We are back. We're talking about being independent. So why should we focus on being independent in our lives? Well, the number one thing, I shouldn't say it's the number one thing, I think this is a super important part of it, is that it boosts your confidence. Because having confidence and feeling proud and confident in yourself, I think is a very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Important quality, I guess, for a human being, important characteristics. I think confidence, first of all, super attractive to be a confident person. And it's super attractive in your own life to be confident because you don't feel like you're always second guessing yourself. You don't feel unsure. You are confident. You know what you want. You know what you're going after, and you're going to go get it. So you're handling issues that are affecting your life a little bit better because you feel confident in yourself, that you can handle those situations better. You know, you're also more likely to try things that you want rather than what you're expected to. So sometimes we get put into a position where someone says, we feel like they expect us to do one thing, but maybe we don't want to do that thing. But we do it anyways because we're expected to by somebody, or maybe it's by multiple people, or whatever the case may be. Whereas, when you have confidence in yourself and independence, you're going to try things that you want, and you're not going to care about other people's opinions on it. This could also lead to having more experience, which, having more experience, I think, automatically boosts your confidence, because when you're experienced in something, obviously you feel more confident in doing it, right? Compared to other people that might not have experience in that certain aspect. So that definitely just automatically boosts your confidence. So it really is just about building your confidence up, and confidence will open up your mind, and it'll help you take bigger risks. It will help you try new things. It's going to help you go after your goals. Basically, making sure that you're boosting your confidence is going to broaden your horizons. I could talk, I'll do a whole episode on confidence soon, but because it's just so important, I think, and it's something that is really hard to obtain, especially if you've been knocked down and you've been feeling low about yourself. And I think these days, social media and all these things have a really hard effect on our self-esteem and our confidence. But being independent is going to be boosting your confidence, and boosting your confidence is going to make you more independent. It goes hand in hand, and it's super beneficial for your life. Now I want to talk about emotional independence. And so when you have emotional independence, this is going to automatically reduce your stress, and it's going to promote your happiness, because you're not relying on anybody else for your happiness except for yourself. You can make your life decisions without always, pulling people into it. That means that you have emotional independence. Often we always ask for advice from our friends and family or partner, whatever the case is, because, it's natural to ask for advice. It's natural to want someone's second opinion, right? Of course it is. But when you have emotional independence, you can make those emotional choices by yourself without having somebody kind of chime in and tell you what they think that you should do or what they would do in the situation. So you don't have that influence. You're able to control it completely by yourself. Social support is necessary, I think. I think it's so good to get advice, and it's so good to talk to your friends and family about things. But when you can handle your own things for the most part, then you don't have the influence of anybody else, and you're going to be making more clear decisions, which I will jump into that a little bit later on in this episode. But the next thing I want to talk about is financial independence. First of all, this is a sense of accomplishment. This is obviously going to boost your confidence, first of all, because having that accomplishment to feel financially stable on your own, I think, is one of those things that just makes people feel so good about themselves, because finance is one of the, the biggest stressors for everybody's life. Money. And that's just how it is. And because we need money, we need money to live. We have to have money. We have to create money. And so when you are depending on somebody else financially, that is a very scary position to be in, because once again, if you get it yanked up from underneath you and you're left not being able to financially support yourself, especially if you have a family or something like that, that can become very, very scary and obviously really, really stressful. So if you also have that stress in your mind, I'm dependent on my partner for making ends meet, you're always going to have that stress. You're always going to have that burden. But when you become financially independent, then you don't have that stress. It automatically is reducing it. So you don't need to answer to anybody as well. You can make better choices with your finances because you are the one that handles it and deals with it. It's all you. So that's what, you don't have to rely on anything. You don't have to have that stress or that weight on your shoulders. You also obviously are less reliant on others, so you have your own sense of security. Often when we are very codependent, we feel the safest when we are with this person or these people. We're very dependent on that. We feel secure, and we rely on them for that security, that safety. You don't feel like, when you are really dependent on somebody and you're in codependency, you often feel like one thing could happen and your life could blow up because you don't have control. And there's always going to be things that we cannot control in our life, but there are things that we can control, like being independent and making those choices to not rely on others, especially for large aspects in our lives. You are more in control of your life, and so this is therefore limiting the things that you cannot control. English today, not working for me. But anyways, when you're in control with aspects of your life, then you can handle the things you can't control a lot better. So obviously there's always going to be things we can and cannot control in our lives, but when you have a handle on big aspects like finances and your emotions and your security and all those types of things, you are able to then handle, life's curveballs, the things that you can't control, a lot easier because you feel stable in other aspects of your life. This is also going to be obviously leading to better decision making because you have proven to yourself that you are the only one affected by your decisions in your life. So if you are dependent on yourself, that means that anything that you choose, anything that you decide is on you. So when you are dependent on others emotionally and financially, it's hard to make clear decisions for your life because you're influenced by them. They're always in the back of your head. You always have that burden. You always have that thing that's, left or right shoulder. What do I do? They're talking to you on the right. Your little sign of independence is talking to you on your left, and you gotta choose the one on the right, whatever they say, because you were dependent on that. I hope that made sense. So this is, you're less reliant, so you're making better decisions that are clear for your life and not clear for anybody else's, because you have to make decisions for you. And you're going to make more clear decisions when you are in control of those large aspects of your life, like the emotional and the finance and all those types of things. Sometimes it's a good thing, of course, to consider other people's opinions in your decisions, but sometimes it's not. So you got to pick and choose. You got to see what's, depends on the situation, depends on the decision. Of course, when you need advice, go get advice, go get help. There is nothing wrong with asking for help, and that doesn't mean that you depend on that person. It doesn't matter, kind of what they say. You just want their opinion because maybe you just need a second opinion. Maybe you just need another voice. It's always helpful to get another voice, another opinion. I'm 100% for that, but making sure that you're not depending on that person's opinion for your big life decisions. And then, of course, this is also going to lead into personal improvement. Having emotional independence improves your relationships with your family, friends, work, and other people that you interact with automatically because you have a better relationship with yourself. Therefore, you are going to present yourself in the best possible version of you in all of your relationships. You won't have to have, these really intense attachment cleaning relationships where you're depending on each other. It can be more fun. It can be easier. There can be less drama when you have that independence for yourself. You're way more in control of your emotions. You don't have to, you don't feel like all of a sudden you're super, super angry or super, super sad or you're overexcited, anxiety. You have more control over these things. And so this is personal improvement in yourself. It's being aware of yourself and understanding who you are. And then you have, when you have control over your emotions, I think that's one of the most difficult things that we do as humans is control our emotions. Some people do it way better than others. I'd say that's one of the most difficult things because I've always had trouble, navigating my emotions, I guess I should say. With over time, I've gotten a lot better, but I understand how, we can fall off track and go off a different line when we're depending on other people, and then our emotions and all these things become so up in the air and we don't know what's going on. So being more independent is just that personal improvement of understanding yourself and being able to control your emotions. And then this leads to, I think, the most important aspect of being independent, and that is the value in yourself. You are the most important person. You should always be your number one priority, especially if you are in the stage of your life where you are getting to know yourself better and you're working on yourself, you're improving yourself. When you're in that stage of growing and learning and getting to know yourself, basically, when you can be selfish and put yourself first all the time, do it. Because maybe you're going to grow up and have a family and have kids, and you can't always put yourself first. And that's a whole different podcast. But I'm just saying that when you are able to just focus on you and you're in that stage of your life, do it. Take advantage of it. It will be the best thing you've ever done. So, life takes us places and we can't always be our number one priority. Like I said, if you grow up, you have kids, a spouse, whatever the case may be, do it now. Do it when you can. And then when you grow up and you get older and then maybe your kids get older, then do it again. I just always find that if you can put yourself first, you should. Because, and I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that in take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself, because if you are not in a good place, how are you supposed to ever take care of anybody else? And so many people are so selfless. Oh, I put everyone else first. And I know so many people who always put other people first. And it warms my heart. It is, they're kind, they are amazing, but it also breaks my heart a little bit to see them not take care of themselves as well as they can, as well as they should. So always remember to take care of yourself first, and then be that good person that you are, and always, help out others and do what you can there. But you'll never be able to fully help somebody or fully put somebody else first if you're not in a good place yourself. So you got to be happy within yourself first. I hope that made sense. But, when you're able to value yourself, you can value your goals, you can value where you want to go in life, this is automatically an increase of self-worth, which is one of the most, and I say this, I feel like I've been saying this a lot, it's one of the most difficult things about life. But I think self-worth, it goes hand in hand with having confidence, right? You have to believe in yourself and have that self-worth to have that confidence and to be independent. It all goes hand in hand, and which of course leads to your overall happiness. Better self-esteem, better personal success, better confidence, better value in yourself, self-worth, all of those amazing things that we need to feel and to obtain in our lives, they all they go together. And being independent can really help you with those. Okay, it's time for another break, but when we get back, I got more amazing information to share with you. I am going to talk about how you can become more independent. Tips and tricks, so stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I have to say, I'm having a really fun time making this episode today. I don't know why. It's just got me really excited. I think this whole pandemic has got me thinking about being independent more, because, you know, we kind of really are relying on ourselves right now, to do lots of different things that we didn't have to do on our own. I hope that makes sense. But I just think that's pretty cool. So it got me excited to talk about being independent. So number one tip for this, being more independent, is getting to know yourself. Of course, you know, getting to know yourself comes with experience and time. And how many times have you heard on this podcast that I literally say, you know, you're learning about yourself every single day. It's always something new. You know, you're always growing and evolving and becoming the best version of you. And you know, you've heard me say that a million times, and it's true. But when you are still learning and getting to know yourself, this is going to help you become more independent. Ask yourself if you are speaking your truth. This goes in hand in hand with the trust thing, trusting yourself. And so really check in with your beliefs and what you think, and if you're speaking and thinking and acting on your own truth. My biggest tip to getting to know yourself, you've probably guessed it, but self-reflection is the biggest thing. I think the easiest way to get to know yourself better is self-reflection. That's another difficult thing, and, you know, it kind of depends on everybody. But once again, I always say write things down, journal, reflect on every emotion, every situation that you can, and you'll get to know yourself so much better. Next thing then, once you are starting to get to know yourself, you're going to also get to know your strengths and weaknesses. And when you know your strengths and weaknesses, you should play on them in your life. So by that I mean, you know, businesses hire people according to their strengths. So why should your life be any different? I saw that quote online, and it made me really think about, you know, focusing on your strengths and your weaknesses. What are you really good at? And maybe what's something that you need more improve on? You know, play with your strengths and weaknesses. If you get to know yourself and you know you're strong in something and you know you might be a little weak in something else, you know, play on those, figure them out, maybe get better at some things. But, you know, if you do something that you feel confident in, that you feel like is your strength, it's gonna bring you more independence as well. My next little tip is challenge your beliefs and your assumptions. So, you know, we often believe things, and it just kind of becomes habitual for things that we are believing in. So often, you know, these perspectives are shaped by, you know, our external factors and environments, the people that we surround ourselves with. So by reevaluating our perceptions of ourselves and kind of the world is also just kind of key for your growth. So make sure you're always challenging your beliefs. I say make sure that you know yourself and make sure that you know what you believe in and you speaking your truth, but also challenge them. Have a conversation with somebody that believes the complete opposite of you and listen to what they have to say. Have you ever like been in a real heated debate and you're like kind of like, oh, you know what? They're kind of actually making some sense. Like, I kind of see where they're coming from. Maybe you don't quite believe them, but you kind of see where they're coming from. I think it's super cool to get those new perspectives and challenge your own beliefs when you can, because we as humans become so habitual in our lives. So, just try to figure out your core beliefs, but challenge them always. Always keep challenging yourself. Always put yourself outside of your comfort zone. So next one is being assertive, okay? Being assertive is a skill that you can practice. This is something that I have been trying to become more aware of, and it's basically just means that you're setting your healthy boundaries, learning to say no, which is something that I have a hard time with. I take on every single thing I can because I don't like saying no, and I don't like saying I can't do it. So I just take on everything to the point where it's like, whew, work overload, don't know what to do. So now I need to be more assertive and pick and choose things that are going to be my priority. So making sure that you're assertive and setting your healthy boundaries in your life in all aspects. I mean, personal, work, friends, family, whatever the case is, set your boundaries and be clear of your needs and your feelings, and then stick to your needs and your feelings. Which leads me to my next point, is letting yourself feel. Let yourself feel your emotions. If you wake up and you are sad, or maybe something happened and you feel sad, and you're like, oh, I can't be sad, I don't have time to be sad. No, let yourself feel that emotion. If you don't feel and write out your emotions, they're just going to keep reoccurring because you're not properly dealing with them. So do not brush off your emotions. Let yourself feel every single thing that you are going through and that you are feeling. Okay, so like if you are angry, be angry. If you're sad, be sad. If you're excited, be excited. Scream at the top of your lungs. Let yourself feel those emotions. This is, first of all, going to help you get to know yourself better. It's going to help you reflect on yourself. And letting yourself feel is better understanding your emotions and where you're at. And it's also going to help make, you're going to be able to control them better, because now you truly understand what sadness feels to you and what anger feels to you. And, it's all about what it feels to you. So play around with it, but let yourself feel your emotions. Because then this way you're going to be able to give yourself emotional support, which is one of the biggest things. We don't want to be dependent on somebody else for our emotions, for our happiness. So you can learn how to give yourself emotional support. You might have heard of the term locus of control. So this idea basically relates to whether you see yourself as being in the driver's seat of your life or not. So basically those with an internal locus believe that your own thoughts and choices affect the world. Those with an external locus tend to feel controlled by events, people, circumstances that are outside of themselves. So if you're lacking independence, it's likely that your locus of control is a bit external instead of internal. So especially in times of a lot of stress, you tend to wait on others to maybe come into your life to affect your emotions instead of being assertive and making your own opportunities or making your own decisions. So when you kind of realize that your feelings exist either inside of you or inside of you or outside of you, kind of depends on if your locus is internal or external. So how much is the external environmental factors, people you surround yourself, your environment in general, how are those affecting you? So you have to make sure you're letting yourself feel and be the driver. You're in the driver's seat of your own life. Be the driver of your own life. You do not want to let somebody else drive your life. I think that is an awesome thing to follow up on in life in general. So then the next tip into being independent is making decisions on your own. Often, like I said, we always get opinion and advice from friends and family, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But challenge yourself to make decisions on your own. Have you ever gone to a friend and you're like, hey, should I do this or should I do this? And then they pick something that you didn't want, but now you're like, well, no, I was going to do that. And now you're super torn because you're like, they didn't agree with me. Now I'm confused. Don't do that, because sometimes it just confuses you even more. Challenge yourself to make decisions on your own. And challenge yourself to make scary decisions on your own. But if you can trust your gut, you can trust yourself, you're going to make the right decision. So you don't need the opinion of others. So it kind of depends on the situation again. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with asking for help and asking for an opinion, but challenge yourself to make decisions on your own, especially ones that are only going to affect you and nobody else, nothing else. Do them on your own and see how things go. See how you feel. Sometimes this can also mean you just need to spend more time alone, can help you become more independent. So a lot of people, especially extroverts, they have a hard time, obviously spending time alone. They get their energy, their vibe, their happiness from being around others. But it's really important for extroverts to find, the happiness in being alone as well. This is something I've also learned over, my time in my life, but like I have always been an extrovert, but at the same time I've been an introvert in certain aspects of my life, and I have to really, I have a extreme fear of missing out, like extreme FOMO to the point you don't even want to know. Like it's terrible. So I've really had to learn how to be comfortable with missing out. With being alone and not, being with all my friends all the time and all these things. And so for me, with this whole pandemic, I haven't had any FOMO because we're all sitting inside, we're all doing our part, and you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. So I've been a lot more relaxed than I usually have, whereas since I'm an extrovert and since I get, good energy and stuff from going out and hanging out with my friends and doing all these things, you really have to learn how to be comfortable in your own skin and be comfortable alone and happy like that. But I do have to say, being happy alone and finding the comfort alone in yourself, like, there is nothing better. And then there's also nothing better than going out and hanging out with friends. And so it always depends on who you are and, kind of what your life is like. And you have to be able to find that healthy balance. Alone time and socializing time, they're two things that are very important in our lives. And you need to make sure that you're finding that independence in both. In your alone time, but also in your socializing time. So this is going to lead to my last and final tip, which is prioritize yourself. I said this before. Value yourself. Put yourself first. Your feelings, your wants, your beliefs. There is nothing wrong with putting yourself first. So make sure that you are, check in with yourself, reflect on yourself, see if you're depending on others more than you think you are. Often we are codependent and we don't realize how codependent we truly are. So do some self-reflection. Next time you're hanging out with your partner, your family, your friends, whatever it is, do some reflection. How much am I relying on these people, on this person right now? How much am I relying on their opinion or their advice, their influence on my decisions? Kind of think about it and see. We are often more dependent on others than we think we are. But being independent is going to lead you to lots more confidence and just better personal improvement and growth in yourself. All right. Well, that is all the information that I have for you today. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Thank you so much for being here. It is so greatly appreciated. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, to like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. I hope you go out there and be assertive and feel confident and bring your independence out, because I just think it's so important. All right. Well, till next time, I look forward to it. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find the show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network, from sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast.